out to this club, and it was like that, a bushel basket. And she said, all the starlets and actresses are going to be there, and they're going to be all dressed up, and they all want somebody to, they're half naked, they want people to look at them, and when I walk in the room, everybody's going to say, look at that chick with the hair.
All right.
Was this Studio 54, do you think?
No, this was California. This was the Troubadour, I think.
So tell me about watching the Ugly George show, because I'm a California girl, and I never saw it in those times.
It wasn't broadcast network-wise. He was just amazing. I mean, he was a little bit uglier than he is today. His looks have improved, but
gotta look like Carl. Gotta slim down like Carl. All right.
Very, very attractive secretaries, God knows what. They were just innocently walking down the street, and within seconds, minutes, they had their breasts in his camera.
How did you do it, George?
Charm.
Charm?
Charm.
Because it wasn't the rings, right? It wasn't the limo.
It wasn't the diamond rings. See, it wasn't my diamond pinky ring. Okay?
It was a hex.
It wasn't.
It was a hex?
It must have been.
It wasn't my limousine, which I didn't have outside. Okay? And they said, well, is your limo going to take us back to your fully equipped studio?
And word was already out that you have a small weenie.
Yeah.
So it wasn't that.
No question about that.
So we're never going to know what it was.
All right. And I said, you want my Rolls Royce limousine to take you back to my fabulous studio? Let's jump on the subway and go to the basement and hold this. And that's what they got. But they did.
It was in doorways, I tell you.
Yeah.
Just any door. Did you have a favorite kind of doorway?
You know what I like to say? You know what my favorite four-letter word is? Exit. Because when I saw the exit sign, I said, thank God we can get off the street with the morons who want to talk to this chick. The minute anybody saw me with a beautiful girl, they suddenly decided they had to interject. Mostly because they wanted to meet the girl. So they'd come up to the girl and they'd say anything stupid, okay? You know, George is talking to some girl. Wow, is she a knockout? Let me go up and say something to her. So when I saw the sign exit in the hallway, I knew we could get away from these morons.
So why did you watch it? Why did you watch the show?
Because the quality of television was even worse then than it is today.
Don't tell.
Commercial
It was
TV.
the best thing going because it was most alive, it was most real. What was it?
Well, it wasn't the production quality, and it wasn't his good looks.
I don't know why you don't.
I don't know. I mean, I think it's an exaggeration that I watched it every night. I think it's because it only lasted about 3.5 seconds.
The show?
Yeah. As I recall, I think they were just little clips. I don't know.
Yeah.
28 minutes.
28 minutes altogether.
Well, I'm not sure I got the whole show then.
You never know what was going to happen.
Yeah.
That's
And then
why.
a lot of
Hits and
celebrities and
misses.
politicians also wanted to be included because they knew it would be seen. Some of them were not too happy when I pointed the camera in their face. Like the borough president of Manhattan, his name was Andrew Stein. He tried to avoid me, but I wouldn't let him go. So he waffled. He said, I love my wife. Boy, do I love my children. I love my family. I want everyone to know that I, Andrew Stein, the borough president of Manhattan, I love my wife and children. But on the other hand, being a good liberal, if people want to watch that kind of stuff, which I don't want to watch because I love my wife.
Because I like to go out with Mr. Spitzer to his favorite clubs.
Well, this is a little earlier than that, but yes. You know, but I guess it's okay for people to watch that if they want that. But I want everyone to know that I don't want to watch it. That's my excuse, please. That's basically what he said.
No, we're starting, Jim.
We're starting,
Can we
yes.
stream? I'm too
It's
tired.
getting serious. It's getting serious.
Oh wow, you got a new camera.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a
Oh,
neat
it's
little
getting high
camera.
And it's got a wider...
Well, we probably should do the interviews actually back at the studio.
No, what studio? It's too
You
hot.
want to do it here?
Yes, that's where
Really?
we're doing it.
Yeah, so we were listening
We're doing the
last night.
Roman style, you know, sort of lounging on our.
Here we are at the ACAP meeting, producers
Plein air and
for public
we didn't get
access.
politics for
Yeah, me and Ugly George, and they'll know where they are.
Buddy Petty?
Manet,
Manet, the painting?
Déjeuner sur
Yeah.
l'herbe.
The painting,
It's a famous painting, and like all the artists have their clothes on, and their models are sort of, and they're having a picnic out on plein air, you know. And
Oh, right.
God, how can I
I said,
miss
if we
that?
just get you to take off your clothes, we could do a reenactment of Déjeuner sur l'herbe. She won't take off her clothes for Howard Stern, but for me, she'll do anything.
No, because Howard wouldn't take off his pants. So
Howard
that's
wanted
why.
to pop your top, and you said you would if he took off his pants? I love it.
Underwear, please, not just pants, the whole thing.
For years, you know.
He went and smelled what's-his-face's scrotum. I mean, come on, what's the pants?
I know, even Howard was grossed out, I could see.
You know what they did on that show one day? A girl came in and they have is Christie still there?
I don't know.
Oh, he's a funny guy.
Richard Christie.
Oh, Richard Christie, yeah, he's the guy that
was
was punking me.
He is fantastic, and he has, he was a drummer.
Oh my gosh, is this a prop camera?
We're using
Does that thing really work?
people with outdated technology called videotape. Can you believe that? From the 1890s. Old Gloria uses cameras from the 1890s.
No, you're using one from the last millennium.
Yeah, something like that.
No, he's pretending it, yes.
All right. And there's Molly Cheshire nude, right?
Yeah, just pretend I've got my clothes up.
Well, this is the X-ray attachment. Okay?
That's the Superman attachment.
Okay.
I'm going to do a Coke ad.
Oh dear.
What is that called?
Should ingest this.
Thing he's got on the front.
So George has been successful with his variation of Girls Gone Wild, huh?
He started Girls Gone Wild. It was based on his model. Yeah, he's got an
was
amazing
modeled
show.
on
Anyway,
He's talking about getting 87 million
this girl contacted Howard Stern, and she said she wanted somebody. Richard Christie was one of the best hard rock drummers.
Really?
Yes,
Yeah,
supposedly.
he was with a lot of groups, and she wanted somebody to play the drums. She wanted him to play drums on her butt, and he played the drums on her butt. And I mean, with this hard rock music, and for about 4 minutes.
How hilarious.
And when it was over, they were all exclaiming about how red her butt was. And Artie Lang says, God, it looks like Ted Kennedy.
I actually don't
What
get
do we
it.
make of that?
So back to
It's a
holograms.
mystery to me.
Back to easy stuff like 9/11.
Hysterical.
Yeah, sex is always sells, but it's a hard one to put up with.
It's a hard one to put up.
Well, you know, everyone gets a little uncomfortable when sex.
Artie Lang is the funniest guy in the world. Oh my God, I love Artie.
Was he the one that had the heroin problem, or that's someone else?
Yeah.
I was so impressed with that. Before I went on, they were talking about it, and he said he didn't want to get his heroin in Harlem. And he would go down to Delaware. And I thought, at first I thought, oh, you know, I'm going to go on after this. And then I thought, well, that's a good thing that they're talking about it, because there's probably a lot of people with that problem.
He told the story. He was also a coke addict. And he was on Mad TV for a couple of years, which is a really funny show. And for some reason, they had him dressed up in a pig outfit with big udders and a pig head. And he said it was at the lowest point in his life. He was totally addicted to drugs, and it made him so depressed he had to go score heroin. So coke. So he scores it, and he's in his car, snorting it in this pig's outfit. And a woman in the car next door spotted him.
Spotted him?
And what happened?
Well, you know, they're the kind of stories that Artie tells a lot better than I do, but it was hysterical.
Well, what did she do when she spotted it?
She just looked, but he said, you know,
It was
he
embarrassing, I
was
guess.
feeling so bad anyway, and that
heroin
was,
addict in the pig's
that was the epitome when she looked over at him.
Oh, I see. He had kind of a revelation.
But not that it stopped him.
No.
Kind of like
more than
Buddha
that.
under the Bodhi tree. I didn't have to do all of this. He does all these austerities and then... Anyway.
You know, Paul, I brought these newspapers just to show you, okay, that in Argentina, astonishingly enough, they actually report and publish what you have to say.
Okay.
This turns out to be one of the most important reporters in Argentina, and look at this.
I can translate. The planes
Upside down.
We're not responsible.
We're not responsible for the Twin Towers of New York.
How about that? Beautiful color pictures.
And so what they're showing are the explosions with no airplanes. That's what Rosalie Grable saw in the first hit. Is that the first? No, that's not the first hit, is it?
Running things from.
Well, so this is one of several different takes on what I presented, which were 3 lectures on 9/11 and 1 on JFK. But here's.
Got Barack on the other page.
Yeah, that was a nice coincidence, wasn't it? You got Barack here, and then this is saying that Bush suspicion falls on Bush in relation to 9/11.
Notice they didn't put Bush's photo on there. They should have put a really stupid photo of him.
And then the news service of the Republic of Argentina, Tellem, published 2 pieces. One of these, Paula, is this is the 15 points of refutation of the official version of what happened on 9/11.
So they're going no planes now?
Well, what they did was publish what I actually had presented, including, 15 of our disproofs of the government's official account. I mean, they just published it straight.
So let's cut to the chase. What about no planes versus TV Fakery? Are they exclusive? Because you were saying that you could have TV Fakery, but still there could have been planes.
As a logical point, you could have had TV Fakery to conceal features of the planes or of their interaction with the buildings that needed to be concealed. Obviously, if the videos are authentic, however, you have to have had planes, but video fakery appears to be compatible with planes or with no planes.
Right. What about holograms? Let's take it to another.
Yeah, because I felt you didn't get your question answered to John Lear. You said, could it be possible that they recorded holograms?
Is it possible?
You asked that question, and he said he needed time to think about the answer.
I thought
that was a great question.
Yeah. Well, I know very little about hologram theory, except, of course, that Rosalie has been advocating it for so long.
No, she said she stopped advocating it when she saw that there were a lot of actors involved with saying that they saw airplanes, but then Joe Friendly says he knows some, and I've met some very, very sincere people who felt they saw airplanes, and I'm thinking, what could be a better psychological operation to divide people about what's happening than to actually throw in holograms along with TV Fakery, so that you get people fighting? Because I think it has to be either one or the other. That if there's TV Fakery and there's no evidence of airplanes but rather character-generated images, then therefore nobody could have seen airplanes, when in fact people did, because maybe they were seeing holograms. So what I got from your show was that John Lear was saying that hologramography, whatever you call it, is very advanced, and you were talking about scientifically illiterate. People wouldn't say this unless they were scientifically illiterate because they didn't know how advanced holograms.
Well, I mean, you just go to Disneyland and there's holograms all over the place, and you can photograph them.
Are there really now?
You can
Well, there always have been.
Really?
Like the Haunted Mansion, a lot of holograms. You know, like inside the crystal ball, they've got that woman's head.
Yeah.
You know, so it's if you can photograph that, I don't see why you couldn't photograph.
I didn't know you
Sure, I agree.
I've seen photographs of it.
No, points about scientific illiteracy apply to, what I take to be some of the most significant arguments for video fakery, such as that the plane is traveling too fast to be aerodynamically possible, that the estimates average out at 560 miles an hour, but it appears the plane actually at that altitude couldn't be going faster than 200 to 300 miles an hour.
Did you understand that part, Molly? That was the first time I understood that when you were at 35,000 feet, the air is thinner, so there's less volume going into those suction cups of the engines of the jet, that at a lower altitude it's 3 times thicker, so it would stall the engines, that it's absolutely impossible to go that fast.
That's the John Lear argument, and the Joe Keith argument is that the plane would start to shake apart.
Okay, so it's 1, the engines stall, and 2, shake apart.
Yeah,
so
that the air is too dense for it to be, suctioned through the turbine so that it becomes a kind of a brake.
So how, like for example, on those fighter jets, like the ones that they
the one they show actually was connected to a platform on rails, so that it was impossible for it to attain the elevation necessary. That's a completely contrived.
But like for example, with Chuck Yeager and all the Mach 1 experiments, like
those are specially designed aircraft. Yeah, a lot of that's rocket propelled.
But I mean, couldn't they have used something like that?
Well, not.
Let's say it's not a plane.
What we're talking about.
Not hijacking. You're not going to hijack one of those.
No. But what I'm saying is that let's say it was a plane-like thing that just wasn't a passenger plane. Let's say there was no hijacking.
The video fakery arguments just pertain to what is being shown in the videos.
Right.
And if those are conventional aircraft, then the properties of conventional aircrafts are being violated. Conventional aircraft are being violated in the video. So whether you could have in fact had something else
Well, like
taking
for
place
example,
there.
in the Pentagon situation, wasn't it? It sounded like it was more of a missile than it was an aircraft. I mean,
Well, I think there was a combination actually, that they may have had a commercial carrier head toward the building and then swoop over it.
right.
Pilots got the data from the National Transportation Safety Board and analyzed it and came up with a different trajectory. Pilots for 9/11 Truth.
Oh,
Because you've got the plane on the official account coming in about a 41 or 42 degree angle, very acute to hit the building, and it's only about ground level and taking out these lampposts, which is already physically impossible. I mean, it can't be flying that fast, about 500 miles an hour, and be ground level approximately, because of what's known as ground effect. When the plane gets close to the ground, you get this compression of gas, which is, of course, air, so that it can't get closer than, say, for a commercial carrier, about 60 feet to the ground. I mean, for that one, 60 feet to the ground. Even with a little Cessna, about 15 feet when it's at full throttle. Plus, if you hit these flagpoles, I mean, it's not just the plane hitting the flagpole at 500 miles an hour. The effect is going to be the same as if the lamppost. Thank you. If the lamppost had hit the plane at stationary at 500 miles, think of the damage it would do. It couldn't have stayed on its trajectory if it had been hitting these lampposts. So they study the NTSB data and find the plane is coming in 300 feet too high, almost perpendicular to the building, 300 feet in the air, too high to hit any lamppost, comes straight toward the building, but it's still 100 feet above it when it's 1 second from what would have been an impact and actually flies over it. And curiously, this confirms what a friend of mine who had a buddy who was a trucker right there, a guy named Dave Ball, was right in front of the Pentagon, and told my friend from JFK Research that he'd seen this big plane come right to the building and then swerve off. And my friend, whose name is Roy Schaefer, was saying he didn't understand why his buddy, Dave Ball, insisted a plane had hit the building when he hadn't seen a plane hit the building. But the best I've been able to reconstruct is a much smaller aircraft was substituted in the Washington area and came in about the same time and fired a missile into the building before it hit the building itself.
So it was a flyby.
It was a flyby, a deliberate distraction.
You know who are the best witnesses now that are coming forward on the planes?
No.
The birds. Did you see the bird that flew in front of a plane and knocked its whole nose in?
Oh, I know.
Right.
These planes are actually relatively fragile, you know. This is particularly important.
But when the birds are pissed off and giving testimony like that, I think it's about the
birds are showing more.
Maybe Alfred Hitchcock was right.
More truth orientation than Philip Zelikow, who is the executive director of the 9/11 Commission.
well, what do you think is the most exciting part of your work with John Lear? Because isn't he descended from the Lear jet guy?
Yeah, he's the son of
That's kind of
Bill Lear, who designed the Lear jet.
But some people will discredit him straight away just because of that, because they'll say he's an insider.
He used to work for the CIA.
Well, it's ridiculous.
Did he work for the
talks
CIA?
about it, and he says all he did was, he was just an employee. They didn't tell him you've got bodies from Vietnam stuffed with cocaine or whatever they were having to fly. He didn't know.
No,
Why would such a rich guy fly? Just because he enjoyed it?
He explains it pretty well in that thing. He said his father wanted him to go to law school and all that kind of stuff, but he'd been around planes and he loved them, and he just
Howard Hughes, for example.
Yeah, he just loved
In
planes,
his
and that's what he wanted to do.
I interviewed him on the 3rd of July, Paula.
I know.
And I went through his qualifications. I mean, the guy owns like 17 speed records, world records for speed.
Every aircraft.
Yeah. He's a remarkable resource. He's as expert as they come, in my opinion, in this area.
No, I listened to him last night. He sounds like he's got
Very
science.
convincing.
Well, he's.
He also took the time to explain to me what a shill was. It's a term that they use in casinos to get somebody to go in and create excitement. And the last thing he said, there's so many layers to 9/11 to try to figure out. And the guy
that he's talking to says we couldn't even do it with a, what do you call it? What are the things autopilot. They tried to do it.
They couldn't fly the plane that way with an
impossible to do that maneuver, and then they say it was done by a guy that barely knew how to fly.
Yeah, you're talking about the descent of about
beginner's luck.
Beginner's luck.
Yeah.
There you go, Molly. Hani Hanjour. His instructor said, unbelievable, he said the guy couldn't fly at all. Maybe he's trying to tell us something.
Was that the first interview you had with John Lear? Have you known him for years? Because I think I remember after he wrote me that, took the time to carefully elaborate when everybody was just assuming you kind of have to sink or swim and figure out what they're saying. A long, long time ago, I think I read something that actually Marcus Balby forwarded to me that said, explained why no planes just was really, really striking, like David and Goliath. It was the final little rock that could lay the whole giant low.
I've had a couple interviews with Joe Keith now, and I can't recall if that was my second with John Lear, but I'm going to have him on.
Engineer.
I'm going to have him on again this week, actually, on Thursday. I'm going to have John Lear back. Joe Keith was an aerospace engineer for Boeing who actually designed their shaker system.
Oh yeah, I've heard of him. He's on YouTube.
Yeah, he's getting up there. Yeah, they actually have a platform that shakes the plane to see what kind of resonant frequencies bring about its crack up. Because
and he said it would have never made it.
When these early planes were flying across the Atlantic, they lost 5 of them and they couldn't explain it. And they finally realized that there are certain frequencies at which the plane starts to fall apart.
Right.
So he needed a way to test for it, and he designed the system.
Well, and at different altitudes, like my great uncle died at Wright Field. You know, they named it after
Patterson.
Stuart Patterson. And they were testing the machine gun bullets to synchronize with the propellers.
So they wouldn't shoot off all the props.
Well, what happened is that at 5,000 feet, it worked fine. At 10,000, but when it got above that, it
sheared them off.
It sheared them off, and then it cut off the wings. And they didn't give them parachutes.
Oh,
so he died, and that's
why
it's called
that's
Patterson
how you lost your
Field.
grandfather?
No, great uncle.
Great uncle?
That's why it's called Patterson Field.
Yeah.
Right,
I've been there. I actually went to Wright State, which is
they'll
just
name
adjacent to it.
No, I think that it was because the aircraft were more valuable than the pilots. That's what my grandfather was one of the first 100 flyers.
That makes sense.
And
in that time.
And he was the son of the National Cash Register guy. So,
yeah.
Human beings were expendable.
Nikola Tesla used to do a lot of experiments with vibrations.
Yeah.
And he, I think it was with a pendulum or something, he was working with vibrations. And he actually, it could make his building shake. And he created an earthquake in Lower Manhattan.
Oh, I heard about this.
And the firemen, all the people were calling and running to the fire department, saying that their buildings were shaking. And the minute the cops heard about it, they just went right over to Nikola Tesla's lab, and they said, "Cut it out, can stop."
Whatever you're doing, stop it.
It's enough.
So
there's a lot with vibrations. I mean, even that bridge in Minneapolis, I thought they were working with jackhammers on it.
Sure.
Right.
But nobody talked about that the vibrations might have brought it down. What a time to be working with jackhammers when all the cars are on there.
So what do you hope to accomplish in the next talk with John Lear?
Well, we'll probably review some of the arguments for video fakery. I think it continues to deserve elaboration.
Are you going to go back to the hologram issue?
Maybe. I mean, I'm open-minded to discussing these things.
See if you can get him to do some research on that, because that was kind of, you kind of let that dangling, and we're like panting.
Yeah, we were waiting for the answer.
Waiting for inquiring minds need to know. And somebody's actually listening out there. Just remember that. Sometimes.
I'll see if I can tip him off. That would be a good one to discuss.
Come on, Dustin. Oh, you want to meet Dustin? Howie wants to meet Dustin. Howie was. Tell about how Howie was named.
Oh, he's named after Howard Stern. That's all.
Why'd you name him after Howard Stern? He doesn't look anything like him.
We were listening.
He's so cute and pretty.
We had Sirius at the time, I guess, or maybe it was still on K-Rock.
Howie has had a haircut, so now he's a fluff terrier.
Yeah.
For today.
Changed his identity.
Well, I'd get a haircut too if I had a fur coat that I couldn't take off.
Down to here.
Tattoos are quite the thing with the younger people. And my sister's boyfriend was saying to somebody who wanted to get a tattoo, now go upstairs and choose a t-shirt, and that's what you're going to wear for the rest of your life. But some of these are quite beautiful, what they're doing. So.
Is it amazing?
Meaning the effect on the skin was equivalent to wearing a t-shirt?
No, well, in other words, you can't change it.
Got it.
Is anybody old enough to remember when a tattoo was the worst thing you could ever do to your body? You were immediately an ex-con or a criminal.
Right.
Or a service.
Like Lenny Bruce. Did you ever hear his routine where he comes back from the service and he has a tattoo? And not only should he not have a tattoo because of his class, he was Jewish. And they all start picking on him. His mother, his aunt, Mima, She says, he says, a Jewish seagull. She's yelling, a tattoo. Now we can't bury you in a Jewish cemetery. He says, oh, come on, just cut off my arm and bury it in a Christian cemetery. Oh, he was going to tell that joke on the Steve Allen show. And the producers had to talk it over for about a half an hour. And when they come back, they say, no, it's rejected. Not only does it insult Jewish people, it intimates that Christians will bury anything.
Hey, Nita, do you know, I'm taping now. You want to join us? This is Nita Renfrew, and this is Jim Fetzer. If you want to sit there,
we've met.
sit and join.
Yeah, it's nice to see you.
Join in our discussion. You were talking about coming through portals.
Coming through portals, that's right. This is a real producer, isn't it?
Have a seat there and I can get you in.
Who, Paula?
I'm too much backlight. Huh? You have to go home?
Yeah, I want to say hello.
Our life is
Okay,
transparent.
thanks. Okay.
Do it. Right, do it.
Hi, yes, Neil. Nice. Bye now.
So we include everything. I mean, I work in the real world of television.
Oh, you do? Where do you work?
I'm freelance, but anyway, so everyone's always really uptight, like if the doorbell rings, and so we were interviewing Webster at my aunt's house in D.C., and the UPS guy shows up, right? So I'm like,
This is good, Jim.
well, I can't remember what happened. It was just like we just included it instead of like stopping tape and.
No. We said, remember we made something about the postman. Remember in Watergate the postman was.
Oh, right.
Little Webster?
We had just Webster Tarpley. We just met him. It was a down.
I thought you meant that black actor.
Webster, we're
I
probably
don't know.
Webster. On that
more concerned about that than most.
Are you talking to him lately? Where is he on No Planes?
Webster's gone on a binge about Obama.
Yeah, what is the problem?
Does he like him or not like him?
Always
hates him.
absolutely
Rabid.
deplores, and it's quite bizarre. And he thinks Zbig Brzezinski wants to start a war with Russia and is the primary
Brzezinski's
influence on Obama.
He's got to have a lot of rotten parasites hanging on him in order to get there. Just hope he can shake them off.
Well,
That's the way it goes. That's the game.
I remain cautiously optimistic about
You
Obama.
have no choice.
well, because how do you feel about McCain?
Oh, McCain is a complete and utter disaster. He's incoherent. He's lost
Yes,
it.
he definitely.
I can't believe anyone
And then the funny
serious
thing is, they have all
could
these
support him.
they have all these surrogates out there, and then they keep firing the surrogates because they're even worse than he is.
We just fired Phil Graham, who's
Yeah,
about the
exactly.
sixth of his big lobbyist advisors for a guy who claims he's going to do
And
away with
The
lobbying.
problem is he's not very exciting, in his
Oh,
speeches.
God.
When you
And-
figure that there were people.
Boredom, world-class boredom, John
So when
McCain.
Stephen Colbert has got, who's so supposedly this rabid Republican, guy,
He's a funny guy.
he's hysterical. But anyway, he's got this green screen thing. It said, how can we spice up John McCain? So everybody, here's the green screen, you put in the background, and they put all these hilarious backgrounds in during whatever he's saying to get people to watch.
When you think that people will actually go to the polls and vote for John McCain, you understand why we make so few inroads with 9/11.
Well, the problem is not John McCain as far as I'm concerned about 9/11. It's that when you try to change a paradigm that's been sort of entrenched, it's more than just 9/11. It's this whole realities. It's like, what does it take to shift people's basic premises?
Yeah.
And I think that's really what's at the. You can show people, like we can show Alan evidence at the wazoo, but he doesn't see. He sees what he wants to see, and we see what we want to see.
Its core is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I know. We were with a real estate agent the other day from Connecticut, and she was great, as all real estate agents manage to be, because they want to sell something. But she was really an interesting, vivacious woman, but we got the clue that she was a Republican. Because we didn't go
As
into
most real estate agents
probably
are.
or Connecticut, but all she said was we asked if the area was Republican or Democrat, and she said it used to be Republican with the lightness in her voice, but it's becoming Democrat, and then we knew the answer. But when I said to her, what do the people around here think about 9/11? Do they think it was an inside job? Most of the people in New York do think it was done by the government. And she was in the front seat of the car. I was in the back. She didn't answer, but I could feel it in the whole car. Something that it did to her. It was so offensive to her, and it was never brought up again.
Offensive
Well,
that
it
anyone
could-
would ask for
That
Just a
anyone
second.
would think that.
Right.
Just a
feel
second. It should be offensive to think that our government is not taking care of us, and maybe it's not true.
No,
Maybe
she was-
I don't believe it's an inside job done by the government any longer. I believe it's an international drugs and weapons
Right, that's
cartel.
true.
And I think what you said with John Lear, what also really impressed me was 80% of the world's economy depends on the cash that's exchanged in illegal drugs. So if we're not really talking about a very important part of our economy, how can we begin to understand anything
But even
about
at that,
what's
you're
the
talking
government?
about, it did happen here, and a lot of people and a lot of the media have gone along with it. So
Well, no, an international drugs and weapons cartel that would have access to exotic weapons that, say, someone like Stephen Jones should know about if he was at Los Alamos, but doesn't fess up to. Whatever the economy is that's exchanging that kind of commodity can also have the same kind of advertising, including negative advertising, which is hiding it. So that kind of organization could usurp an entire government. So
Well, no,
it
I mean,
very
that's what I
much
was
would not
saying.
be from the government. It would be
just
overtaking
so
the government.
shocking to her that you could just feel her bristle.
You could feel her bristle, but my experience going at that ground zero is people like that straight across the board, left, right, liberal, whatever they are. If you show them TV Fakery, the penny
You might be
drops.
able to change it, but would you ever
But
get
controlled-
her to the TV?
Controlled.
I mean, I've had a lot of
Would you
people
be able
walk
to do
away.
what?
I've had a lot of people just walk away if you talk about it.
About what?
About the possibility of
9/11 having been an inside
Right.
job.
But that's what I'm
Well, but
saying.
if you-
It's
you
not
see,
an
the thing is
inside
that
job.
if you
TV
hit 'em
Fakery says it's not an inside job. TV Fakery says it's a media job.
Yeah, but it's more than just a media
Well, the
job.
media
I think
has
that
to
that's
have-
not. I think that's a misnomer too.
the media
Paula.
is a tool.
I know, but how many people, political people, people of goodwill who are really, really trying to do the right thing, can get really badly hurt by the media in doing that.
Well, I know, but the thing is,
So why can't an entire government be hurt by the media?
yeah, but I think to say that it's a media job also is not giving the full picture either. You know, I think that
Well, if the government and the intelligence agencies dominate the media,
We don't
they're
know
really
that.
just
I think
operating
we
on
don't know
the
behalf of the
drugs
government.
weapons cartel
Well-
is a much
William
is much more to the truth.
William
Oh
Colby.
yeah, but that buys off the media more than the government would buy
Right,
off the media.
and I'm just saying that
Government.
just to blame the media just seems kind of.
Well, William Colby, the former director of the CIA, boasted that they owned every major figure in the mass media. And before
who said
him,
that?
William Colby, the director of the CIA, and before him, Carl Bernstein had published an article in Rolling Stone in 1977 entitled "The CIA and the Media," where he explained that the officials of the agency were boasting their greatest successes had been with CBS, with Time Life, and with the New York Times.
yeah, well, you're
And if you can
complaining
control
about the New
those
York Times.
entities, at
And they
that
don't
point
do
in
bad
time,
with
you pretty
ABC
much had a
and
lock on the
NBC too.
news.
Yeah, but the interesting is that the New York Times actually gave that interesting article on the Chicago conference that I thought was remarkably unbiased. You know,
That
or
professor's a paranoia?
I can't remember. It was the one that rich people. What rich people think of 9/11?
Oh,
What
right.
was that conference?
Rich people?
No, I was reading it. It had just come out, and we picked it out of the trash.
We picked it out of the trash in Gramercy Park, and I
You
came up
did.
to Molly
You
and I
did.
started
And
doing a show.
Have you still got it?
Oh,
Yeah,
it's,
no,
it's one of my best hits videos. I just stuck it up. What do rich? First of all, I called it "What does the oligarchy think about 9/11?"
But most people
And I
didn't know what
wasn't
the hell
getting
the
any
oligarchy
hits.
was.
I'm not
So-
sure if I've ever
so I
read that
changed
article.
it.
I'd like to see it.
So I changed it from "What does the oligarchy think about 9/11" to "What do rich people think about 9/11?" And then I started getting hits.
You know, ridiculous.
Keep it simple.
It was hysterical. though, 'cause-
Oligarchy sounds so.
But I mean, like, I was just commenting. I mean,
Might as well be what astrologers
I'm
think
not
about
even that rich, you know?
oligarchy.
I'm not that rich, but you've got the keys to Gramercy Park.
Well, only through you, though, Paula.
Yeah, well, I'm not rich either, so.
Anyway,
It's
I'm
just
just
a
saying
fluke.
that
We're capitalizing on our resources.
she was inflating my assets, shall we say?
I got some interesting comments on that.
I'll bet you did.
Very interesting.
I mean, everybody
comments.
thinks that I've got bags of money and.
And what did the rich think about 9/11?
Well, she's talking about me.
Here you are. Ask
You're
her.
thinking about what did Molly Cheshire
Yeah,
think
yeah,
about
that's-
9/11?
that's how she
I
drilled
see.
me.
I love it. Oh, it's great. Were you featured the article?
No, it's not in the article. Yeah. I'm reading the article in
We're talking about
it.
And you're the living, breathing example.
We felt that was the first time 9/11 had hit
the mainstream.
The mainstream.
And it was in the New York Times, on the front page of the Metro section. And it had a big thing on 9/11 truth. And this conference that was in Chicago, and I can't remember. And it was, how many years ago? Like 2 years ago?
A couple of years ago.
In this
the conference was 2006.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So we still have that newspaper, don't we? Isn't that power?
No, it's a power object. Oh no!
You threw it away.
I don't know.
Given it
no
to
idea.
me. God, Paul.
Would have been around 5 or 6 June. Would have been.
Molly keeps
everything away,
and Molly keeps it.
Just the opposite. I keep everything.
Yeah.
Well, especially power objects like that.
Which anything we touch is
until we moved from Duluth, I still had every check stub from every check I'd written since I was an undergraduate.
I still have everything. No. I still have everything. Well, and the crazy thing is I started shredding stuff, and then I found a use for it, and I was devastated that I'd shredded like almost a year.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my god.
I'd hate to guess the use for it.
Well, because I have a back injury.
You've got the shredded pieces. You
no, they're gone.
When are you going back on Howard Stern?
I'm the 11th of August. What do you think I should talk about?
She's not actually on Howard Stern. She's on Sirius Radio.
Oh,
it's on Howard 101.
101.
Do you ever listen to that?
I don't have Sirius right now.
Oh, you don't? You just
we'll post it on YouTube once we pirate it off.
What will you be doing, Paula?
I don't know. I have no idea.
How much time have you got?
An hour.
An hour.
Oh, that's great.
It's going to be. I think the theme is to take abuse into stimulation. That's my concept.
That's not as
Total
good as mantra, yantra, santra, or whatever. What was it?
Mantra, yantra, and tantra.
Mantra, yantra, tantra.
That's always going to be
abuse into stimulation. But
the idea of total penetration had to do with the video fakery. That you had to have an airplane totally penetrate the buildings, which you couldn't do if it was a regular airplane, to create the kind of psychological mode.
You mean there was a sexual motif to the presentation?
Wait. I thought total penetration was even further down the rabbit hole.
Well, it was Howard-esque farther down the rabbit hole.
Really, way down the rabbit hole.
Right.
What can you add to that?
Truth.
See, Freud would have appreciated your insight.
Oh, we're way beyond Freud. Trust me, we're way beyond. This is why psychoanalysis.
As my classics professor said, Oedipus didn't know his mother from a hole in the ground.
Oh God!
He said what?
Yikes!
Your classics professor said.
Classy professor.
My classics professor said Oedipus didn't know his mother from a hole in the ground. So that's way beyond Freud. That's beyond the Oedipal complex.
No, but so the idea is by understanding the sexual motifs, we can go beyond them. That's because people have hang-ups. The public's hung up.
Hey,
and
what about
while
the private?
They're spinning, private parts.
Yeah, like us. You know, I mean, it's like you're acting like the public is hung up about sex. You know, I mean.
The private.
What about the private? What about us, you and me? Let's not make it
us
and
the public
them.
and the private. Okay, I thought you meant private parts.
No.
No, if I do go on Howard Stern in the morning, I should talk about something racy like my sex life.
How about a weapons show? Box cutters.
Beyond box cutters? Yeah.
So anyway, so Jim, back to you. Don't worry, I won't ask you any embarrassing questions on air. Yeah. I have to have about a bottle of wine.
Didn't understand. Or a couple.
Or a couple bottle of wine. What it meant. No, okay. So what's the next step with what you're going to do with this information?
That's a great question.
Well, more of the same. I'm going to have a new book on the controversial aspects of 9/11, and I think with this Argentine group, create an international research journal.
Well, I mean, frankly,
devoted to 9/11, because I'm getting more. There's more receptivity from the rest of the world than there's the United States. The rest of the world understands.
Absolutely. I mean, here's my next question: how are you going to capitalize on your Argentinian connections? now that you've got such a willing audience?
We are in the process of creating an online research journal, 9/11 Global Research, also 911global.org. And I already have 3 articles and a couple works in progress for us to put up in the journal when we get it together. We're going to invite Thierry Meisen to be a co-editor with me of the journal. He's the French intellectual who published 2 early books on the Pentagon, one called Pentagate, the other called 9/11, The Big Lie, and his son put up a website called Hunt the Boeing. That was one of the early uses of the internet to explore 9/11, because you could search through all the rubble, all the photographs, and find no evidence whatsoever of a Boeing 757 having hit the building.
I think information is great, but I mean, you can compile all the information you want, but what do you do with it?
Well, the problem, the Scholars as such is a research organization, so you're really talking about the activists carrying issues forward,
I mean, what would be your dream activist, as far as a result of the best possible way of using the
if the district attorneys and the attorneys general in the states where these crimes were committed, Pennsylvania, New York, and Virginia, were to bring
hit Shanksville
suits, organize grand juries and so forth to investigate, I would.
Who would you organize it against? Or I mean, how would it look?
That's a very good question about exactly how it would be technically phrased.
Actually, Luann, we're kind of getting into a part you might want to have something to say on. Molly was asking, what do you do with this knowledge?
Suppose we could get district attorneys to bring some kind of organized grand juries to look into 9/11.
You can't, because the federal judges, they're in federal court in New York, where the venue, Ellen Mariani.
Yeah.
And they've been totally shafted. There was a young doctor who was killed, I guess, in one of the planes. And his parents, I think he might have been adopted. They had 2 adopted kids. The other kid had died.
Which plane? What, over Shanksville?
I'm not sure which one it was. It might have been. But I just read this on the internet because they went into the Hellerstein case to try to pursue the courts.
What's the Hellerstein case?
Well, Judge Hellerstein, who's a real good friend of Mukasey and Giuliani, he's in the whole club. He has, they made sure he got these 9/11 families' cases, the few that pursued it at all.
Well, what's bizarre about this case too is that it's a liability case, and they're bringing it against the airlines, and normally you have to have a trial to determine who was responsible and proportion liability, and then you have a determination about what the liability would be and damages. He's reversed the process.
Well, he's eliminated damages. It's only he's eliminated liability. It's only damages.
This is the stage since I last looked into the case.
Right. It's only
at that point he was reversing the.
No, he's not having anything on liability. He said right from the beginning. He said it's only damages. I'm eliminating liability. Well, you know what the airlines did? They told them. They said, if you come after us, we're going after the government.
Yes.
And because they were the ones that were authorized, so that killed it all. So so this kid, he wasn't a kid, he was a doctor, and he worked for the thing in Atlanta,
Center for Disease Control.
Right, and they were going to get money for him. They were going to, and part of his trial, which they thought they were going to get, that Coop was willing to come in and testify that he was such a brilliant young doctor that he could have been the head of the whole organization, and what his salary would have been. And Hellerstein said would not allow the testimony. He says he just lived from paycheck to paycheck.
Well, I don't see how you can have it
more insulting to the family.
How can you have
everybody lives from paycheck to paycheck? But
how can you have damage without a determination of liability?
Not. That's what I'm saying. They are God. They are running it, and they're.
Yeah, but you know what? The interesting thing is that it's kind of a war of attrition. The pendulum swings and regimes come and go, so that you never know if you just hang in there. I mean, I know this from personal experience. Just hang in there long enough. And
my husband's been practicing law for 40 years, and when one goes, another replaces them. They've got them lined up behind them. They are.
Yeah, but sometimes you get a little chink
every
in the
once.
armor.
Oh yeah, he's had a few of those.
And we live by those chinks.
Yes, we do.
You just we do. You just gotta.
Not to sound racist, but we live by those chinks.
there was nothing racist involved. I was thinking more of the Achilles heel. You know, you get
Exactly, the Achilles heel theory. So does that answer you, Molly? Where do we go?
Well, I still would like to see, okay, I heard all the nay against it, and there's no way you can win anything if you're just going to focus on the negative. What I'm more interested in is that how would you structure what it would look like, let's say, if you could get any traction?
The one thing is...
Probably a war crimes trial.
The one thing... No, we're out of The Hague.
We're out of the what?
We're not. The United States...
that we withdrew from?
In July. What a coincidence. We did 9/11 in September, and in July we withdrew.
Yeah, but we could start... We could do another war crimes trial.
What's that?
2001.
I don't think war crime trials do very much, Jim.
To withdraw from The Hague. And if you read the law, I read it on the internet, if you ever are called to testify in The Hague, they will put you in prison. It's on the internet.
I should show you 1/3 of the Holocaust.com. It gives a whole other take on the... Because you always watch it's a Hollywood production,
no
right?
American, if any American is ever called for as a witness in any case that goes on in The Hague, they can be put in prison.
You're kidding me.
Look it up on the internet.
Say that again. I was talking to Molly.
What happened? I read the whole thing because I was like sitting there like a little Miss Dummy saying we got to solve this problem. It's not going to get solved in the United States. And I really went to Googled the International Court. Some German in Arizona or somewhere was accused of a crime, murder, I guess, in the United States, and when a national from another country is accused and brought into court, there's an obligation that we go to that country and notify them. We didn't go to that country, to Germany, and tell them they prosecuted him or something. And then Germany came over and took him back or something and wouldn't let us put him in there. They used that as an excuse to withdraw from the International Court. And that was in July of '01.
The excuse again was
this German who committed a crime in the United States when we prosecuted him and did not follow the international law, which is that if an American is tried in France, American courts are supposed to be notified before they...
It's that old plausible deniability bit again. You want to have some reason you can offer to pull out of the Kyoto Accords and
and they
the International
out
Court.
Of the International Court.
And of course, they ran a propaganda operation against the International Criminal Court, which is another matter too.
And the whole thing was on there. And when I saw that, and it said if an American, they wrote the law or something that if an American ever testifies in a case, they can get thrown into prison. Read it.
Well, it's clear that they've taken a lot of measures to insulate themselves from any possibility.
Well, I still think that the one discovery of the petition, which is on the books, that in this state, which is the jurisdiction of the crime, if 30,000 signatures are collected, but that means 40 or 50 by a certain time, you present them to the city council. If the city council turns them down, which they inevitably will, if you're really strategizing well, you have your 15,000 lined up, because you need 15,000 more before the election. You are automatically on the ballot. But you do have to have that funding plan.
Unless Jameson doesn't have a funding plan, right?
And not only that, he doesn't have the following or anything. He's jerking around with it.
Why?
Because there's a lot of different theories. But tonight we've got to go over there. We've all got to go to down there.
What do we have to accomplish?
We have got to just ask him.
We'll embarrass him, isn't that bad?
It isn't just embarrassing. If he has said in print to the American Free Press that he has 20,000 signed petitions. We know he started in February. He has no staff or money. We know it's impossible. And after he announced in that press that he had 10,000, about 6 weeks later he sent out a communication to his lists. He now has 20,000. That is really a misrepresentation.
So you're questioning that. So isn't that where you verify them? Isn't he going to verify
He is now supposedly validating them. That's the other thing.
What is validating?
Well,
tell us who don't know.
order to, they say if you need 30,000, you have to get 40 or 50. I read a thing in California initiatives. They feel 1 out of 4 will be faulty.
Because somebody signs up twice or something
or there's missing information, whatever. So you have to go through every single one of them, and you toss out a lot.
How do you validate them?
Well, probably through telephone or email. Find out the person, email, whatever different ways you can.
Phone book and stuff like that?
Pardon me?
Phone book?
Yeah, anything you can, you know, to make sure that the person
What
still
a laborious
exists.
process.
It is. They make it. They're all obstacles. Getting those signatures is not easy. Now the question is, if he's he'll really now he's going up to 20,000. Why is he having volunteers come in and sit there and validate them? And he's apparently making lists of the names and addresses. If he gets 2,000, if he really cops out the truth, he really only has 2,500. He'll just say, well, I'm going to continue on, because he can then continue on for next election. But will the validation that you do today be valid in a year? I doubt it. And he knows.
So you're saying validation is premature?
I would say it's premature.
You should wait until you have how many signatures before you validate?
Well, you
30,000?
No, you need 40 or 50.
40 or 50.
Right.
What, you know, just to have some in the back pocket?
No, because as you go through them, you got to toss them out if they're not correct.
So it's so you actually need for the city council 15,000. That's
no, you need 30, and in order to get 30, you need maybe 40 or 50.
You need 30 valid
signatures. Right.
Valid.
And then
So anyway, I'm go ahead.
Once you turn them in, they're going to turn you down. And then you have the option to get 15 more, but only in so many weeks. So if we started now, the thing to be doing would be to be connecting with people that are going to sign those 15,000. So you know you've got those in the bag in that short time, and then your funding plan.
Well, see, my concern, Molly, was that even after you got it signed, who was the commission that was going to be looking at it?
Well, you don't. You choose. You pick.
But who
the
is we? Who? I was supposed to speak at St. Mark's Church about nonviolent communication and corporations,
and they violently turned her down.
And I got bumped, you know, and then there's Dan Wallace, the young man. There's no investigation of that.
Getting bumped from St. Mark's is like getting bumped from a park bench in Pershing Square.
Yeah, but who's controlling it still? I mean, that's all I have to measure. Who is this group? What are they looking after?
Les Jameson.
What's the feedback? What's the protocol?
Les Jameson and Pepper chose the group that there is in there now, and they're ultimate lamos. Most of them.
They're what?
Well, they're just. It's first of all, very few Americans. Now he's added Gravel. And that's another thing. I'm not even sure.
Gravel's
I saw that today.
Senator.
Senator Gravel.
Yeah.
I'm not even sure you can add. See, the rules. Carl wrote the petition, studied the law. It took him months. And every law is rigid in election law. And Les has no guidance because Pepper doesn't live in the United States, has no presence here. As far as we know, he's really a citizen of Ireland.
I don't know who Pepper is.
William Pepper is the commission head that has been chosen by Les, and those two.
He was a King family attorney in the Martin Luther King investigation.
Where he inserted himself against the wishes of Mark Lane, who was James Earl Ray's real lawyer for years, and who thought he was going to get James Earl Ray a pardon by the governor because James Earl Ray was dying of diabetes or something. Pepper came in, knocked out Lane, and said, no, we want a trial, I need a book or something, I don't know. And James Earl Ray died. So if he exonerated James Earl Ray, what good did it do? The poor guy was dead by the time that he was dead when that trial took place. You know?
Wow, but it's symbolic. Once again, it's symbolic. But back to you, Jim. I still want to know what would it look like? You know, like how would you would you just discern liability? Would you discern what actually happened and let the liability fall where it may? I mean, how does that look?
Well, I mean, it would be nice if you could eventuate in criminal prosecutions.
If you had a trial, Carl's always saying it is a no-brainer. The evidence is so overwhelming that if they ever allowed this evidence, I mean, first of all, Larry Silverstein, how about letting him testify that they pulled those people? And how about the testimony that Luke Rudovsky got out of him where he says that aluminum aerial, he says this on YouTube, fell in front of his building and crushed the whole thing. And that's how those fires started. That's testimony, because he said it on camera. Well, because what are you going to say when you know what happened? When you stood down there and watched it, he said we all watched it collapse.
I've heard questions about that, though. I mean, the more I study, Jim, the more I realize there's more to study. I don't think it's... I agree. Yeah.
But I think that at least you got to start with some sort of investigation.
No, but what do you about what?
Well, first of all, to say that the government did it means that everybody's immediately going to mistrust their government at a time when you really do need some strong authority. Like everyone says, reinvestigate, reinvestigate, but they never consider who's doing the reinvestigation. You could jump into a worse situation, you know, and that's my concern. I think that's why I want to study the weapons. That's why I want to know holograms. I don't want to be scientifically illiterate. I want to be in a group that allows me to think, that doesn't make me feel bad for asking any questions. Even if they're stupid questions, at least I can ask.
You start from stupid things like what everybody saw, and most people that are kind of free, a little bit liberated, and you talk to them about, well, do you think a building could fall down in 7 seconds that wasn't really on fire? They're all going to say, of course not. It's logic, it's common sense.
But you've got everybody divided. You've got the TV Fakery saying that no planes went in. So if anybody saw planes, they're completely cut off, particularly from TV Fakery. Holograms and TV Fakery seems mutually exclusive. Not to mention people like Alan, who's still official story, and he's a plane hugger just because of trusting the authority of people who saw airplanes, who, like Molly said, if you can take a picture of Mickey Mouse at Disneyland who's a hologram, maybe you can take a picture of what
I didn't say Mickey Mouse, but that's all right.
Well, I don't know. Who did you say? I mean,
in the Haunted Mansion, they have a woman that they projected inside of a crystal ball, and it looks like a three-dimensional head.
And you can take a picture of it.
Yes.
But at least we should be able to talk, and it's so hard because you can't. You get kicked out of St. Mark's, and there's never a scientific thing.
We dragged Jim here all the way from Argentina, and so I want to let him have a chance to talk.
Right.
Well, I mean, you know, you want to establish the basic facts of the case in order to draw the relevant inferences about culpability and responsibility and so forth. And I think the plane business, while video fakery is consistent with planes or no planes, or other indications that there may have been no planes. For example, as Colonel George Nelson, an Air Force expert who's now retired, has observed, there are thousands of uniquely identifiable component parts that have to be periodically replaced on every one of these.
They're all numbered.
Commercial carriers, and yet not one of those parts has been found from any of these crash locations.
Right.
When you do have some debris that looks significant, like the engine on the sidewalk in New York, it turns out to be from a different kind of plane. It was from a 737, not a 767.
Really?
There's a piece of debris very famous on the lawn of the Pentagon, even though initially, right after the crash, the lawn is perfectly clear and smooth as a putting green. Later, debris starts to show up, including a rather substantial piece from the fuselage of a plane that was photographed in several different positions as though they wanted to multiply the amount of evidence, but which has been traced back to a crash in Calais, Colombia in 1995.
Right. Well, like, I mean, just on, I hate to harp back on Jon Stewart, but they were showing the Iranian videos of their new nuclear program or whatever, and they showed where they had photoshopped in different missiles. Like, they actually only had 3, although they showed 5 or something like this, and they quickly photoshopped and they said, this is really scary because the Iranians now know how to Photoshop. That's what we should really be worried about.
Maybe they are picking up on what the government has long known, that you can fool people into believing practically anything if you're so disposed.
They can inflate their nuclear program with Photoshop. You know, they don't actually have to have, you know, as many weapons. They just have to Photoshop.
The same Air Force expert has observed that in Shanksville, it looked to him as though someone had taken a bulldozer out there, dug a ditch, filled it with trash, and blown it up. I mean, there's just no indication whatsoever that there was a plane.
There before.
3 minutes. You get 3 minutes to save the world here.
And of course, the claim is that the plane, the reason you don't see it is it crashed into an abandoned mine shaft, which is ludicrous on its face, but we know what to do with abandoned miners in mine shaft. You bring out the heavy equipment, you work day and night in the hope that by some miracle you might have a survivor. None of that was done. In fact, after they tidied things up in Shanksville, they actually cut down the trees that had been burned so they couldn't be subjected to a chemical analysis that might explain how they happened to be damaged. And of course, at the Pentagon, we have multiple proofs that no Boeing 757 hit there. So when you put all this together, along with Elias Davidson, who's an Icelandic scholar, has now published a new piece showing the government has no evidence whatsoever that the hijackers were ever on the planes. There are no photographs of them going on the plane. There is a piece of photography from a different airport at a different time.
Someone said the flights were canceled 10 days before.
Well, now, John Lear has observed, too, that every commercial carrier, before it can pull away from the terminal, has to submit an envelope that concludes the pilot certification that the aircraft is airworthy, they have a suitable fuel capacity, and the passenger manifest and all that. And for not one of these 4 flights was such an envelope produced. So it's increasing.
Fascinating.
Yeah, plus I have myself the FAA deregistration data that shows 2 of these planes were not deregistered until 2002 and the other 2 not until 2005.
What is deregistration?
It means it's no longer in service.
So it's out there flying phantom flags all over the place.
Well, we even found one advertisement for a used jet that had the same identification number as one of the 4 planes.
On something like a little more than eBay?
Sort of, yeah, something a little more glorious than eBay, but it was the
Not
same
much.
idea.
So
what I'm
we
saying,
have 2
Paula,
minutes to wrap it up.
what I'm saying, Paul, is that the indirect evidence strongly suggests that there may, in fact, have been no planes. It's not dependent on just the existence of video fakery, but obviously, if there were no planes, if you're seeing planes in videos, they would have to have been faked, and the evidence shows us, I say conclusively, that they were.
I mean, he's giving testimony, and when you talk about the commission, a good commission would just allow testimony.
Right.
And be open about allowing testimony, because if you have a trial and somebody was murdered and only 2 people were there, the only thing you have are the forensics and the testimony of the 2 people. And the one that's the most convincing is the one that wins. So whatever you read, and that's why I said it's a no-brainer if it were allowed to be presented in a forum and if the public could hear it. It's obvious. And that's really what your commission is.
One additional point too, Paul, is that there's a failure to appreciate that there's a huge difference between whether or not the towers were brought down using conventional explosives, including thermite, or it involves some unconventional mechanism, which could have been mini nukes, 3rd or 4th generation, or could have been lasers, masers, plasmoids, HARP maybe played a role. Because if it was any of the latter, if it was the unconventional mechanisms, and that directly implicates the military-industrial complex. Conventional explosives, thermite can be obtained even on eBay. You mentioned eBay, you can buy them there, which means anyone could have obtained them. But these other high-tech weapons and all that, those are really controlled by the government.
It's also troubling that Stephen Jones and Bob Bowman have ties to these kind of unconventional weapons, and they don't talk about it. I think that's very troubling.
There are a lot of troubling issues of that kind floating around, I'm sorry to say.
There's a lot of stuff floating around, and the one thing you would hope, if you could ever really have an investigation, is they would stop floating.
Yes.
And then you would have to judge it. You judge the expert witnesses. That's all a trial is. And there are going to be people that are going to walk away and say, boy, that was done by those hijackers. I'm convinced after I saw that. And there's nothing you're going to do to stop it. But historically, to have given this an airing in the proper format is I think all you could ask for. And time is passing, and that makes it always harder.
Carl's going to be of Woodstock. He's going to be. What's Carl going to be of Woodstock?
Well, he's just up there talking to them, so I don't really
He wants to be the attorney, the city attorney general.
Well, he wants the post of a city attorney general to finance the commission. Right, because the funding plan is important.
The funding plan's important.
Cash is king.
Any final thoughts? We have a few seconds.
Help!